Capital gains are a wonderful thing when used properly. However, if left unchecked and if not done appropriately, can leave devastation in your financial plan's wake. Tune in now to consider this program to learn how to not get on the dark side of capital gains. Welcome back to Consider This Program. I'm your host, Grant Soliven.
And I'm Jamie Burton.
Jamie, love doing the show with you, my friend. It's back. And then this segment recording, really going to talk about the untold story of capital gains.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the dark side. Right?
Sure.
Just like for all of you Star Wars fans out there, I am one myself. We got the light and the dark side, the yin and the yang, right? The Jedi, the Sith. Right now, we're going to talk about the dark side of capital gains, the untold story, because they can produce just like the Force. Sorry, I'm sticking to the nerddom here. They can be a very positive thing, but in the right hands or wrong hands can be good or devastating. Mm-hmm. So, Jamie, as a simple recap, let's talk about capital gains. Just kind of hash it out. I know we did this in another segment, another recording, but I want to make sure that we cover this. So cover the basics of capital gains, short-term, long-term, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So when you are thinking about capital gains, think of the actual term. There's capital and there's gains. The capital part is the part where you invest a certain amount of money. That's the capital that you put in. That is the money that you've already paid taxes on, and you've decided that you are going to invest it in, we'll say, a security for this example. And then you look at the gain side. So consider that you decided to invest $100 of capital into a certain security. That security has grown to $200. You now have a gain of $100 on that security. When we are looking at whether that capital gain is a short-term gain or a long-term gain, what we know is that if you hold a security for 365 days or longer, it is going to be treated as a long-term capital gain, which has preferential tax treatment. If you have a security and you decide to sell it before you have held it for 365 days, you are going to have what is called a short-term capital gain, and it is going to be taxed at your regular income tax rate, that the tax bracket that you live in, rather than having that preferential tax status.
100%. Jamie, thank you for covering that. It's definitely, we want to always revert back to the basics when covering complex topics. And so that's important for us to realize and remember. And so getting into the dark side of capital gains, it's, getting returns powerful. And remember, if you have investments inside of an IRA, Roth IRA, 401k, Roth 401k, right, those are deferred vehicles. All of the gains that are recognized from buying and selling positions, dividends, etc., that's all deferred down the road. And a traditional IRA, traditional 401k, when you pull your income out, taxes are paid at that point in time, at that tax rate, at your marginal tax rate at that time. Good news, shameless plug for Roth here, all the gains and dividends recognized in that Roth IRA when you pull the money out are income tax free under the current code. So, a very powerful vehicle we want to use, but we're specifically talking about right now, what happens when you have investments in a non-IRA 401k account and you're buying and selling, recognizing investments, right? What does that look like? So going back to my Star Wars analogy, the dark side here of capital gains, if you listen to Jamie carefully, she said the word recognize, right? You recognize, meaning you sell the position and then you pay the tax. There is a dirty little thing in the mutual fund world, and it's called phantom capital gains. And here's what I mean. Imagine you're in a position where you have mutual funds that you purchased, and the market's down 30%, right? Well, in that situation, you have a loss. And if you recognized those capital gains, you would take a loss on your 1040, and depending on how you're preparing taxes and what you're doing with that loss, it could carry forward. You could wipe out other gain from other areas. Well, you recognize that, you see this loss, but then all of a sudden you get a different 1099, and it's for capital gain. And you're thinking, wait a second, I just had a loss on paper or realized, how am I owing taxes on gain that I never had? Welcome to the phantom game world of the mutual fund. Unfortunately, what happens is investment managers inside a mutual fund, they have to recognize and realize cash, right? And so they are buying and selling internal investments inside their mutual funds, stocks and bonds and exchange-traded funds just like everybody else. And they're recognizing tax that gets passed on to you. And so if there's a downward environment, right, in a market, they're trying to do the exact same thing you're doing and harvest losses, etc. And sometimes they're getting rid of massive positions that have great gain in them. And then, Jamie, all of a sudden you're stuck with paying this massive tax bill at a loss.
Yes.
These were really hard conversations, folks, that Jamie and I had back in the early 2000s after we graduated, in families that were trying to find up from down in 08 and 09. And it's still a big problem today. It's not something that's gone away. It's just a mechanical oddity inside of mutual funds that we just can't get away from. And so that's a dark side of the investment there. So if you're owning mutual funds, we suggest you really consider other alternatives. There are more efficient, tax-efficient alternatives like owning a stock individually or an exchange-traded fund. So that's a very long-winded, one-sided conversation, Jamie, on the dark side with phantom gains. But let's also talk about, Jamie, where capital gains can really hurt you tax-wise if not done carefully. And let's walk through kind of, you've seen many families go through this. And I think in another show you talked about a family that was realizing gain and maybe they shouldn't have had to. So why don't you cover that story and what we were able to help them through?
Absolutely. So what we know at Financial Enhancement Group is that there are what we call 5 critical elements of planning that we have to focus on to make sure that somebody has a very solid financial plan in place. And what we know is with those 5 critical elements, if you miss one of those areas of planning, you can set yourself up for hurt in the future, for failure in the future. So when we're looking at these capital gains and we're looking at the decisions that are being made, it doesn't just encompass one of those 5 critical elements. It really encompasses multiple areas. One of the areas that we're looking at is the investment playbook, and then another one is the tax planning. And what we want to look around for the capital gains is, what are those capital gains going to look like for your taxes? It feels good. It feels really good to have an investment where that investment is growing for you and you see that number on your statement growing, and it feels good that you've made the right decision. You've made a good decision to invest in this. But if you don't take a step back and decide what is best for you tax-wise with that investment, if you don't have a process around it, if you don't have a plan in place for it, it can hurt you in the future. And that's what happened to one of the families that came in that we are taking care of. We saw that he has this brokerage account and he has 3 different stocks in there. And within that brokerage account, there are lots and lots and lots of gains, a very large number of gains that he has never had anybody have the conversation about how to unwind from any of those gains. He's never had anyone have the conversation with him that, hey, maybe based on what your taxes look like this year, maybe we should recognize X amount of gains on your tax return this year, pay that preferential tax rate of 15%, get some of those gains out of that account so it looks better for you going forward. Because no one had that conversation with him, because taxes weren't a priority when he was making those investment choices, he got himself in a situation to where if he ever did need the funds in that account, it was going to hurt him tax-wise moving forward because there was no planning on the back end.
And Jimmy, it's huge because it's a different story if you're just buying these and holding these investments, stocks, ETFs, equities, whatever you're buying and holding, and it has a significant appreciated gain. Under the current tax code, if you're leaving that money behind for a beneficiary, they get what's known as a step-up in cost basis, and they will pay no tax on that gain when the asset's inherited. Now, if you're doing that on purpose, right, that's fine. Under the current tax code, nothing's changed there. You should be okay. However, where we see a lot of families get into trouble is that there's this thing in the tax code called your central federal estate exclusion limit. And right now, we've been very blessed. It's now if you're married filing jointly, it's at over $20 million. So you have this $20 million shield around your investments that you're not going to pay death tax on if you pass away. And depending on what state you live in, there is no death tax, so there's a positive there. But if that ever comes down, right, and you're stuck with these large capital gains, it's an endless cycle of pain that you have to leave behind. And if they ever change the tax code and they end up making beneficiaries recognize some of these taxes, you're going to be in trouble. Mm-hmm. And another portion is, don't get caught with these huge holdings and don't not use, say that 3 times fast, your family's tax returns. Right? You know that we've got situations with families where there's an asset that is large and has a substantial capital gain, and if left unchecked, and if things change before something happens to the owners of the asset, before it transfers to beneficiaries, it could be a huge tax problem, a big bomb that goes off. And so if you're not going to use multiple tax returns and heirs' tax returns to your advantage, you're missing out on an opportunity. So, for example, in this particular family, we're using the mom's tax return and her beneficiary's tax returns in transitioning this wealth over time to take advantage of the tax code, right? Because when you transition an investment, even into a non-spousal heir, they take on basis. But remember, if they're below the 12%, 10% tax bracket, they pay zero long-term capital gain tax. So there's so many ways to skin this cat. It's a beautiful thing. Don't get caught unawares without good planning. If you're looking for that, that's what we do. Please reach out to us, 800-928-4001. Brittany will be on the other end of that call. Looking forward to getting you connected with one of our team members. Also, if you're looking for more content, you can find it at yourlifeafterwork.com. Lots of checklists, lots of articles and other videos that Jamie has recorded and written and other team members have, all available for you there online. Please don't hesitate to reach out and grab that. And you can also scan this cute QR code if you're watching on YouTube or other video programs, and they'll also take you to the website as well. So thank you for being part of the show with us. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.